I've had the Galaxy S24 Ultra for a month now, and that's enough time to really get to know the phone. So here's why it's better than before, but also why it's worse. This is Android Police's Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra review. Like it or not, Samsung gave the Galaxy S24 Ultra a price hike. This year's top shelf model cost $1,300 US. That's $100 more than last year, which might not sound like a lot in percentage terms, but it does make this year's phone closer to $1,500 than it does $1,000, which is food for thought. Samsung has made some physical changes to the Ultra's design. It's now sharper, less sleek, and honestly, I think it looks better, if a little less futuristic. However, just like other smartphones whose makers decided to sharpen things up recently, it's not the most ergonomic. The new sharper titanium edges and corners do dig into your hand if you hold the thing in the same position for a few minutes. It's not super uncomfortable, but it is enough that you want to shimmy your hand and adjust your grip. Speaking of titanium, the new edges do feel grippier thanks to the more feelsome texture, but this also helps the phone feel more sturdy and more substantial. There aren't any additional certifications, we still have IP68 weatherproofing, but there is now Gorilla Glass armor up front, which aside from helping against scratches, is also noticeably easier to see in direct sunlight compared to the competition thanks to the new anti-glare coating. It doesn't completely eradicate reflections by any means, but it does aid in outdoor viewing and does make a difference. Which is also helped by the new brighter, completely flat display. It's still a 6.8-inch Quad HD Plus 120Hz AMOLED, but this time it's an LTPO unit rated at up to 2600 nits in HDR peak brightness. This display is an absolute peach. It's the new best display in any smartphone in my opinion, because the way Samsung tunes its smartphone displays keeps things sharp and contrasty, but also natural and in an easy way to view outdoors. So whether you're settling down for a night in of mobile gaming, watching social media on your commute, or reading articles and documents, you're in for a treat when it comes to the Galaxy S24 Ultra's display. And between you and me, I much prefer the squared off corners to the comically rounded ones that we see on a lot of newer models. It keeps the thing looking cleaner, as does the flat front element compared to the curved edges of the previous generation devices. And this is going to be quite divisive. I know some people don't like the change and some people do. I personally prefer a flat display, but it really is going to come down to your personal preference. I want to touch on the cameras sooner rather than later, because despite the fact that Samsung has historically made some of the best smartphone cameras in their respective generations, this one feels a little bit of a misstep. It has the same 200 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 10 megapixel 3 times and 12 megapixel selfie cameras as last year, but now with a 50 megapixel 5 times zoom over the 10 megapixel 10 times zoom from last year. And unfortunately, that periscope zoom is just plain worse than the last generation. Images are softer and less detailed. It's not a bad camera by any means, and it's still capable of capturing some very good photos at long range, but it is a backward step, and a noticeable one at that when you take the images side by side. As for the rest of the lenses, I had a blast taking photos with the S24 Ultra in 80% of cases. It captures rich, dynamic imagery with lots of contrast and colour in typical Samsung fashion, and whether you're taking photos at night, in the day, through any of its lenses, it is a very good package. Please don't get me wrong here. I like the added sharpness and contrast that Samsung employs. It keeps images looking interesting and draws your eyes to them. In fact, the camera system as a whole captured pretty natural colour temperature and white balance, though the Pixel 8 Pro still has it beaten from that perspective. What you're seeing here is mostly what I saw with my eyes, but it wasn't as accurate as that aforementioned Pixel. But there was one thing I couldn't help notice when I was trawling through the test media for this review, and that's motion. For some reason, and this is especially noticeable at night or when taking photos with a longer lens, it might take a couple of shots to get one that isn't blurry. This wasn't the case for maybe 90% of the photos I took. It was more common though with the S24 Ultra than any of the other phones I was using to get a proper stable shot. Video footage in Ultra HD 60p looks solid, and I think Samsung Video is actually quite underrated. It looks natural, it's smooth, it's sharp, and it reacts well to changes in lighting conditions. Of course, this year's phone is all about AI, and Samsung has included a couple of really useful imaging tools, such as its AI photo editor, which is very similar to Google's Magic Editor, allowing you to erase and move sections of an image. There's also an AI photo enhancer that boosts contrast to create a cleaner image. And there's also instant slow-mo that interpolates frames to slow regular footage down further, although unfortunately I wasn't able to test that at the time. These tools are really useful and work a decent amount of the time too. This stuff isn't perfect and you won't get 100% hit rate, but it does seem like Samsung parked hardware development just to focus on the software development this time around, especially when it comes to its cameras. There better be an astonishing camera cluster on next year's model, because this year, it's not made much progress at all. It's still a good setup, still one of the best, but it's not making those big leaps that it probably should, especially when you consider the small leap the price tag took. Speaking of which, the performance and battery life haven't majorly changed here either, though that's less of a concern because last year's device is still fast and lasts ages on a charge. The 5000 mAh battery in my Galaxy S24 review unit lasted me about 2 days almost every time I used it. That's with a mix of Wi-Fi and LTE usage, mostly social scrolling, and never more than around 3 to 4 hours of screen on time per day. I'm not the sort of person to just sit on my phone all the time. In my book, it's pretty good going, especially when you consider the speed that you're getting at the same time as this longevity. Samsung's exclusive use of Qualcomm chips in its Ultra smartphones is a blessing because the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is super fast. Of course, paired with 12GB of memory and 256GB to 1TB of UFS 4 storage. This is one of the fastest phones on the market, so if you're a gamer, you're gonna love it. And if you aren't, you're probably still gonna love it. I didn't experience a single performance hiccup in my time with the device, which is to be expected given the price tag, let's be honest. But longevity should also be a strong point because Samsung has committed to 7 years of software updates with this thing. That's 7 years of major software updates and security patches, theoretically keeping this thing going until 2031. That does sweeten the blow of the 4-figure price tag a little bit, especially when you consider the things that this phone can do that its competitors can't, such as having a built-in stylus, the S Pen. You either use it all the time or you don't, but I value having it with me for signing documents and marking up photos and screenshots. If you didn't use it before, you probably won't use it now. Nothing has really changed with it on a major level. And then there's DeX that many people often forget. It allows you to hook up a monitor and use your phone as a little desktop computer, connect a keyboard and mouse over Bluetooth or USB. This is something I always forget about personally because it just feels unnatural to plug your phone into a monitor, but it works shockingly well. In fact, One UI 6.1 works really well too. It's not going to be for everyone. I know there are enthusiasts out there that really just don't like One UI, and this version isn't going to change your mind, but I really like the layout and I think most people will be absolutely fine with it. I like how quick and light it feels, especially compared to OG TouchWiz. Do you guys remember how bad that was? This feels much better, and it does get timely updates too, so you don't have to worry about the phone being behind the times, at least for another 7 years. As a whole, the Galaxy S24 Ultra feels like a sidestep from last year, with a higher price, lesser periscope camera, new AI tools, but samey non-AI features, and new update policy, but similar performance and battery life. Look, I get that you can push technology only so far, but if you're coming from a Pixel 8 Pro or a Galaxy S23 Ultra, anything in the past year or so, I would wait until the Galaxy S25 Ultra and hope for some bigger changes, because whilst this is probably the best phone you can buy right now, it's not the massive year-on-year change that many, including I, were hoping for. And that's it from me, guys. Let me know in the comments if you'll be picking up an S24 Ultra or if you already have one. And maybe you're looking at something else too. The Pixel 8 Pro is a great deal right now. OnePlus 12 as well, fantastic. That review is coming soon, by the way. Thank you so much for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas with Android Police, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.